One thing that I think I've always been lucky is the people around me. I've been lucky enough that people believe in a little bit of what I try to create, which is nice.
Yeah, that's not too bad. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Teaming Up with Becky Sauerbrunn, brought to you by the Women's Game. I'm Becky, and this is a show where we meet people in and around the game of soccer, the leaders, the thinkers, the doers, and connect with who they are by talking about what they love and what they nerd out on. Today on the pod, we're teaming up with Seattle Reign head coach Laura Harvey. She's a 3-time Coach of the Year award winner, the winningest coach in NWSL history, and maybe most importantly, super fan of all things Adele and Celine Dion. A trailblazing leader in the NWSL's early days, she's coached some of the greatest American and international players in the women's game and continues to build a player and fan culture in Seattle so dedicated, few markets can rival its passion and commitment. Laura's dedication to the sport and her players is unparalleled. She forms unique bonds with each of her players, advocating for them during ownership changes and standing behind them during tricky rebuilding seasons. Laura knew from a young age that she wanted to be a coach. And because of her age, she had the unique experience of being a coach to her own peers. By embracing those relationships and by fostering environments where authenticity and humanity reigns above all, she found a leadership style that would inform her coaching career for the years to come and that would be reflected in the success and in the strong cultures you see everywhere she's been. She's someone who puts everything on the line for the club, and I'm so glad we got the chance to connect. Enjoy my conversation with Laura Harvey. Laura Harvey, welcome to Teaming Up. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
Well, the honor's all ours. Every week in the NWSL is critical and every point matters as we've come to learn and love about our league, but it doesn't leave a lot of time outside of team preparation for more leisure activities. Are you still getting a chance to work on your golf game?
Yeah, not as much as I used to, but yes, that's right. I'm definitely better than I was in Utah, considering I'd never picked a golf club up before. And now I actually beat Scott occasionally, which was unheard of back then. And Lee Wynn also plays. He's actually very good. So we tried to get out as much as we can, but it's nowhere near like it used to be.
Yeah, and Scotty P, just for listeners, is your longtime assistant coach in Utah and also in Seattle. Yeah, you guys golfed quite a bit in Utah.
We did. Well, yeah, there wasn't much else to do. So,
that's pretty true. That's pretty true.
I skied in the winter and I played golf in the summer.
And you went to concerts all the time.
That is also true.
One of my favorite parts about having guests on the show is learning how they fell in love with the game. And I call it going back to chapter 1. My inner book nerd coming out a little bit with that one. So Laura, you grew up in Warwickshire with a Premier League obsessed father, and I assume that he planted that seed of your love for the game. But take us back to a particular moment in your youth, on the field or in the stands or wherever it was, where soccer really spoke to you for the first time.
Yeah, I was really lucky growing up. Like, I was the firstborn child in our family, and my dad was a secondary school or high school like PE teacher. That was his main job, and then he did football on the side. So he was an academy director, an academy coach. He then was a scout for the FA, all these things. So we would get tickets to games, and our local team was Coventry City, and they were in the Premier League then. And we would go to games, and he would say things to me like, don't watch the ball, watch the centre forward's movement, or watch what the defender does to try and stop, whatever's happening. And I think that is really what gave me my love of coaching, right? Like, it's not about what's happening right now. It's about what just happened or what's about to happen. And that sort of analytical side of the game was probably the thing that I loved the most. Outside of playing, like I did enjoy playing, but I definitely didn't love playing as much as I loved coaching. And I might be quite unique in that sense. I still enjoy being able to like kick the ball about, but like I never had the same love of it as I do like getting the tactics board out and putting a game plan together and all that stuff. So I really like think about that as my time where I was like, I saw the game really differently, really, really, really young, which is quite unique, I think.
That is really unique. And you really do love your tactics board. I remember that very well. Whenever you would get that out, I'd always be like, oh yeah, here it comes. I'm going to learn something today.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite piece of equipment, without a doubt. I just carry it around with me all the time.
Oh, I remember it was like the most sacred of any of our luggage.
Yeah. And again, back then I had superstition, so I wouldn't change it.
Well, you did have stints playing with Wolverhampton Warriors and Birmingham City. I mean, sadly, your knee injury was at the age of 22, but you almost immediately were named an assistant coach for the club for Birmingham City.
Mhm.
And injuries are really difficult to process emotionally, mentally, physically. But the club gave you an opportunity to stay close to the sport, leaving the door open for a career in the women's game. What
Mhm.
emotions do you remember feeling while you were processing the end of your playing career and the potential start to a coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, I say this quite a lot. I was never good enough to really like truly make a living out of the game playing. From 18, when I left home and went to university, people around me believed I was going to be a coach. I didn't probably believe it then, but they did. And then when I graduated university at 21, I immediately got a full-time job coaching. And they just created a job for me. When the knee happened and it was like, well, now I can't coach because I'm in a hip to ankle cast. The biggest realization was, I think this is where I'm going to make my living. And if I want this to be my living, I may have to sacrifice a little bit of things to be able to really do that. And throughout my ACL rehab, I didn't really say I was done. And I actually, I don't tell this story very often, but I actually recovered from it and begged the head coach, I was assistant coach, begged the head coach to let me play one more time. And he was like, okay, we're playing a cup competition. We're going to win it easily. If we're winning easily, I'll let you on. And I was like, great. So we're like 6-0 up. There's 15 minutes left of the game. And he's like, right, you can go on. I'm like, great. So I was like so happy. And I just remember Karen Carney and Eni Aluko are taking a short corner. And I'm on the edge of the box. And all I do is just check to go and show short for them. Partially ruptured my Achilles tendon. And
No,
I was like, I'm done.
no.
Yeah, I remember Ellie Mabry was at the game, who was sports scientist at US Soccer. I remember the game ending and me having my car keys in my hand. I threw my car keys at Ellie and went, you need to drive me to the hospital. I think I've done my Achilles. So again, now I'm out for 6 weeks in a cast or whatever, not being able to put my heel down. And that was it then. So any emotion I had about playing, I was like, you can't. If you want this to be your career, you can't. And then I just went, my mindset was, okay, all I want to be able to do is if I want to join in a rondo, if I want to turn up and play football with my mates, I can do that. So that was sort of my mindset. And obviously having that job and having the club give me this assistant role where it was pretty much said to me at 22, you will be head coach one. This is going to be your team one day. And I was like, all right. So I was just sort of waiting for my opportunity. And again, I was so lucky as a coach that I had people around me who saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see at that age and went, we need to invest in her because she's got something that is worth investing in, and just gave me opportunities. And I just so grateful for that because I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't had that.
It sounds like while working with Birmingham City in 2005, you were also named as an assistant coach for England's youth national teams, coaching the 17s, 19s, and U23 women's sides. And you were 25 at the time, and that is seriously young. And I think for a very fortunate group of people, they find their calling at a young age and realize this is it for me. This is what I love, and this is what I want to do. Did you have a moment like that during your early coaching days, like a particular instance that really just stands out where you're like, okay, I found it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 2005, I remember I was doing my A license and England informally really created like a mentoring program for female coaches. I was on it. Tracy Kevins, who's now technical director at US Soccer, was in it. And we were being mentored by Hope Powell, who was the England women's head coach at the time. And we went to like a seminar mentoring day and we watched Germany versus China. And they were like, right, we want you to watch this and then come prepared. And we're going to go through a scout and a review of the game. And I sat there and I was like, whoa, this is real information. This is crazy. But in the same breath, I was like, this is me. Like I was in my element. I was in my element because I didn't know everything. And these people around me are like spurting out stuff, and I'm going, oh God, yeah, I can see that. Oh yeah, I can see that. And then real quick, what Hope did was threw me in and went, okay, you're going to coach the U15s today. And then so like taking that sort of day that we'd done that prep, going into then doing a session, and I just remember it being stood on my shoulder. I've never been more intimidated in my whole life, ever. And that was it. Then I was like, this is me. I want this forever.
Oh my gosh, yes. So in 2008, you joined Arsenal as an assistant coach for the first team. Then in 2009, you were named the assistant academy director and reserve team manager, and then replaced Tony Gervais as Arsenal's head coach in 2010. Like you said, this was a huge moment for you. Upon your hiring, you told Arsenal Media, when you set out to coach and you know this is your dream and your love, you want to make it the best it can possibly be. And in my eyes, it doesn't get much bigger than this. I can't imagine the range of emotions you must have felt. Was your dad your first call?
I actually think the one call I remember is my granddad, my dad's dad. And he was like, oh my God, this is like amazing. And he never really got to see me. He passed away pretty early. Like he never really got to see me do it. But like it would just change the trajectory of how my family perceived it. Because my dad tells this story a lot. Like growing up, when I got to like 16, 17, 18, I was like, I want to be a coach. And my dad was like, you've got no chance.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Honestly, he was like that. He was like, it doesn't exist, because it didn't exist, right? And so then it's still to this day, he will joke and go, good job you didn't listen to me. And so like then when I get the Arsenal job, he's like, good job you didn't listen to me. Taking over at Arsenal was honestly like one of the right place, right time moments where I don't think if I'd have taken the reserve team job and become academy director that I would have had that opportunity. I think naturally they would have looked at someone else. But I'm just so grateful that I got that, because the team at the time was phenomenal for a start. The players that were there were fantastic. And Arsenal's a really, really special place. Like it's hard to put into words what makes it special, but we were very good, and we still weren't professional. We trained twice a week, and we were trying to compete. We outbeat everyone in England at that point, but we were trying to go for the Champions League because we'd won it in 2007-8, and then I joined after that. And that was constantly the aim. How do we get back to that? How do we get back to that? And just having that was like just in your core. You were like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm coaching the Champions League. I'm 29 and I'm coaching the Champions League. This is crazy.
So coaching one of the biggest clubs in London, it must have informed your leadership style, as I'm sure it brought on a new set of circumstances, both challenging and rewarding. What did you learn about yourself and your leadership during this time?
I think being young and a little bit inexperienced at the time, my immediate response to getting the job was I had to change. I had to become more autocratic and more like, this is how it has to be. And because that's what really, like then I'd only really been coached by mainly men. The only two people really I'd been around that were female coaches were Hope Powell and Mo Marley. And they were quite like stoic and like, it has to be this way. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to have to change. And a lot of the players at Arsenal when I took over were either my age or older than me. And I'll never forget that maybe 3 weeks in, one of them came over to me and went, what are you doing? And I went, what? And they went, we don't want this you. We want you. We want you. Like, and I'm sure you can live this. I think one thing that coaches miss is I can't be Vlatko. I can't be. I'm not him. And if I try to be like him, players are going to go, nah, don't believe you. We're not in it. We know you're not being authentic. So like that was the biggest lesson I ever learned, was be yourself, decide what that is, and live it. And still to this day, I've not changed after that. I was like, I am who I am. I know that I know what I'm talking about. I'll do it my way. I like to have relationships with players that mean that it's on a human level, not just coach, player. I like to know how they operate, what makes them motivated, you know, what things they like outside of football, because you can relate to them on a different level. And I don't think I would have done that if I hadn't have had that harsh lesson early, you know. I think I would have constantly been chasing something I'm not. So I think that was a big part of my leadership style, was finding out real quick, be yourself and be really good at being you, like decide what you is, right?
Well, everything changed in 2012 when the U.S. revamped their plan for a women's professional soccer league and established the NWSL. You were named head coach of the Seattle Reign for the league's inaugural season in 2013. The U.S. had had 2 failed iterations of a professional league to this point. You were just coaching one of the most established and successful women's teams in the global game. Quite the juxtaposition. What was it about this opportunity that really made you want to uproot the life you'd always known in England?
Looking back now, it was crazy. But I think one thing that happened was when the WPS started, I was at Arsenal. And Kelly Smith, Alex Scott, Gemma Davison, Katie Chapman, about 4 or 5 leave Arsenal and go to the WPS. And even though it obviously didn't last very long, they came back and they were like, oh my God, this, whatever. This was great. We get to do this, get to that. So I was always like, oh, I might fancy a bit of that, you know, if that was to ever happen again. And my brother already lived out in LA. So I had a little connection already. And then honestly, the biggest jump was Bill Predmore. He just called me one day and said, do you fancy the job? And I was like, maybe, not sure. And I think that was on a Monday. He called me back on the Tuesday night and I resigned on the Wednesday. Like,
oh, wow.
I literally stayed up all night and watched Grey's Anatomy. I'd never been to Seattle. I didn't know anything about Seattle except Grey's Anatomy.
Seems like a nice city.
Yeah. And I truly believed I was coming to the Sounders. I didn't know I was coming to the Reign. I thought I was coming to this established club. And then, yeah, obviously I get out here and I'm like, well, we don't know. We're literally starting from zero, like absolutely zero. So yeah, he got me and he got me good.
And for everyone, Bill Predmore, longtime owner of the Seattle Reign. Smart on him to get you. Although I will say the first season for the Reign was a little rough. You started with a record of 0-9-1. Hope Solo was injured. Amy Schilling, at the time, Amy Rodriguez was pregnant. Megan Rapinoe was in France for the first half of the season. So you were met with some adversity with the absence of those U.S. stars. But then at the halfway point of the season, the team went on a 6-game unbeaten streak and really seemed to find its stride. And I was playing for FC Kansas City at the time. And I clearly remember marveling at the turnaround of your season. But then the season ended with 5 losses out of 6 games. And when a team goes through such highs and lows, how do you keep the environment competitive and a place people want to come back to day in and day out?
Yeah, year 1, I mean, it seems a long time ago now. It was a long time ago. Was the most unique season I've ever been a part of in any football, because the results were awful. They were like, it was like every week. I'll never forget the first game we won ever as long as I live. Boston away, Pino's second game. We're on this awful field in Boston somewhere and we're winning 2-1. And I just remember Sam Leahy, who was my assistant at the time, he's grabbing my arm on the 92nd minute and he just whispers in my ear, we're going to win. And the final whistle blew. Bill Predmore was on the field crying. All the players were crying. I was crying. Like everyone was, just because it had taken us so long to get there. But every day the players turned up and just worked really hard. And like, I didn't have to demand more from them. I didn't have to ask them to work hard. We just had this belief that we weren't that far away. And again, I'll give Bill credit. There was moments where I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I can't keep doing this. I'd gone from Arsenal, where we probably lost 1 game a year, to now I've lost 9 straight. And I remember being in Portland away and sitting on the stairs at the top of that hill and saying, I don't think I can do this. And he gave me a 3-year contract.
Just right there.
Yeah. And he was like, I believe in you. I believe in what we're trying to do. We just need to get a few different pieces and we'll be okay. And I was like, all right, you're crazy.
I mean, it's really rare to have an environment like that where the players just stay bought in despite the results. Like, that is a very special group.
It was so special. And obviously we get a lot of plaudits for the following year, the turnaround. But the thing that enabled the turnaround was that core group had stayed, and they continued that sort of mentality, you know. And even in that second half of the season when we went, I don't know, 5 losses out of 6 or whatever you said, I've got Hope in the team, I've got Pino in the team. We had people who weren't used to doing that, and they were all bought in, like really bought in. It was crazy. And I wish I knew exactly what the special sauce was from that, but I truly believe what's made the rain 12 years later was that first season.
Oh, I love that. I also love that you call it a turnaround, like cool, a little bit bigger than just a turnaround. In the next 2 seasons, the Reign clinched back-to-back NWSL shields with the most points earned at the end of each season, and you were awarded back-to-back Coach of the Year honors. You have come so close to winning the NWSL championship, but it has remained elusive. How do you balance what success looks like when we're in such a results-oriented business while also knowing how fickle the soccer gods can be on any given game day?
It's hard. You know, there's some days I don't balance it at all. You know, last year was really tough for the Reign, like really hard, having gone from a championship season, getting to the championship game, Pino tearing her Achilles 3 minutes in, to then 2024, just the wheels falling off, you know, and there's not being able to really push on. And then this year it was like we got reborn again. It's just, football's such a crazy industry. For that. And I think one thing that I've always been lucky is the people around me. Is, you know, early days of the Reign, it was Bill. He was this like solid, understood what he believed we needed to do to be successful. To then now with the Sounders, similar type of mentality. Like they don't just rely on week to week, you know, oh, we're great today and oh, we're terrible next week. Like they don't believe in that. They really believe in culture beats all. And I think then that's I believe in that. So like we align a lot, and that sort of stability enables me when I'm in the high and low troughs to sort of keep some form of balance. I do think successful organizations over the years have had stability. I think that's what has enabled them to have that. So yeah, obviously sometimes change is needed, but it's either you change players or you change the infrastructure of what's behind them. And sometimes a little bit of both can help, but I've been lucky enough that people believe in a little bit of what I try to create, which is nice.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
In 2018, the stars aligned, and maybe I just feel that way because we got to work together for the first time. You became the head coach of the newest NWSL franchise, the Utah Royals. I became the first player to announce my commitment to joining the team. If someone were to ask me, what was your fondest memory during your time playing for Utah? I have a very clear answer, and I'm wondering if my answer would be the same as yours. Beating North Carolina Courage away.
It would be the same, yeah.
Yeah, and ruining their unbeaten.
Yeah, amazing. I still windling up about it today.
Oh, I mean, I try to bring it up to Sam and Lynn almost like every time that we talk.
Britt Ratcliffe, 91st minute. Amazing. What a day. That was the craziest day.
What was your reaction when Britt scored that goal? Because I fell to my knees and was like, yeah, and I looked over to the sideline, and then I got embarrassed because I was like, okay, I'm overreacting a little bit. Just get up now.
Well, the story is hilarious because Diana Matheson's about to take a free kick and she's maybe 5 yards in front of me. And she turns and she says, should we put this in the corner or put it in the box? And my initial response was, get it in the corner. And I go, get it in the corner. And she goes, okay. And then I go, no, put it in the box. And then Scott goes, are you sure? And I go, no, put it in the corner. And then I just went, oh, put it in the box. And she's like, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, put it in the box. So then when it goes in, me and Diana just look at each other to go, oh, worked.
It worked. I'm glad we didn't go for the tie.
Me and Scott still talk about that day to still now, like fondly.
Yes, so very sweet. While working with Utah, you also began managing the U20 team with young stars like Sophia Wilson, Trinity Rodman, Naomi Girma. You went on a 7-game unbeaten streak and won the CONCACAF U20 championship. Unfortunately, the pandemic led to the cancellation of what would have been the U20 Youth World Cup, and you didn't get a chance to see out the cycle with this really young and extremely talented group. I look through the roster, and a vast majority of those players are currently having excellent professional seasons, either here with the NWSL or overseas. When you are coaching high-performing talent at the youth level, how can you tell which players are going to break through and become global stars and which might not make the jump?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way to look at it. I think Naomi, I knew, like her brain, the way she thought about the game, the conversations I could have with her in game. I was like, this kid's got it. And I think at that stage, Soph had already been up and down a little bit into the women. So coming with me was a little bit of get a bit of experience. And she was amazing. Like, she actually couldn't play a lot in the CONCACAF because she had a little knee thing going on. And I'll never forget, we were playing in the Dominican Republic. Obviously, the facilities and stuff aren't like high level. And at the end of every game, Soph didn't touch the pitch. And the girls would be, you know, cooling down or doing some top-up runs or whatever it might be. And I'd turn around and Soph would be picking up the trash in the dugout. And I was like, she's got something, this girl. She's obviously seen where she could go. And then you had Trinity, he was just a maverick. Go do what you want, Trin, and you'll be successful. And I think, like, I hadn't worked with young players for a while until I went back and did that. And it sort of restored a little bit of my faith in what was to come. Because I'd worked with a lot of, like, not older players, but more experienced players for a long time. And I was thinking, oh, am I going to have to, like, tactically, like, reduce what we do, make it more simple, whatever it might look like. And I didn't. There was just something about the group that surprised me in the amount of knowledge they could take on real quick, game to game, change it. And just, I remember just ringing Vlatko, Naomi Girma. And he was like, okay, like, yeah, great. And I think, like, you just could see in some of them immediately they were ready. Mia Fisher, the same. She has something. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I mean, I have quite a lot here in Seattle.
I know, you recruited a lot of those players. Smart.
Yeah, I definitely used that. We were literally talking about it 2 days ago because they all still sit there now and go, we'd have win the World Cup. And I'm like, I agree. I think we would have had a really good chance.
Looking at that roster, I thought that as well. If you had gotten a chance to play in that Youth World Cup, I was like, they probably would have won it. You were also assistant coaching for the senior team at the time, but after the delayed 2020 Summer Olympics, your duties with the squad were wrapped up and you decided to rejoin the Seattle Reign as their head coach. And it was an incredible 2021 season where the Reign finished in second place and you were named Coach of the Year for the third time. And it kind of felt like you had picked up right where you left off. What went into your decision to return to Seattle?
Bill, again. We kept in touch on and off throughout the whole time I'd left. And he called me quite a lot at the beginning of 21 and was like, you know, he never really asked you a direct question. He was always like, you know, what's your plans after the Olympics? What are you thinking? And like that, we just got to talking a little bit and the stars aligned. And honestly, I mean, I only accepted the job as we were getting on the plane going to Japan. That's when I accepted the job. So it was pretty quick turnaround. And I think I missed every day. You know, I say this a lot. I had international football roles at the worst time because there wasn't a lot we could do. You know, we weren't out there doing normal camps and stuff. So I just really missed coaching. I really missed being on the field every day. I missed the banter and the locker room shenanigans. I missed all of that so much. And obviously coming back to the Reign, it was like I'd never left. Pino's still Pino and Jess is still Jess. And obviously we had different faces in the locker room, but the culture and the way in which things operated was still very, very similar from what we built way back when. So it felt very, very seamless. I was a little bit apprehensive about coming back, but once I got here, it was honestly like I'd never left.
Since your return to Seattle, you've accomplished some fantastic milestones in the league. In August 2024, you became the first NWSL coach to record 100 wins. And this past June, you coached your 250th regular season game as Reign manager. So you've seen this league in every stage of its existence. How does it feel to have the success of both the Reign and the NWSL reflected in your milestones?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think that coming back in 21 and us going on this crazy run where I don't know I think we had like 6 points when I got announced as the head coach. And then we were in Tokyo and we got more, Sam Leahy got the team back on track a little bit. And that was like, I was like, oh, the league's different. It's like, it just had a different vibe to it, right? And then in 22, it was just like, okay, who are we going to be now? What do we look like now? And I think that's something that I've really loved is as the league's evolved, as the Reigns evolved, I've had to evolve, right? And I think if I hadn't have evolved, I'm not sure I'd have got to any of those milestones. And I think that piece is something that, you don't know you're going to have to do that as time goes on. But I think knowing that I've had to do that and committed to doing that in the way that I coach, in the way that I set teams up, in the way that I tactically look at things, I want to constantly try and be at the top of my game, because I think if you don't, the game just passes you by. And that sort of stuff is what drives me. I just love it. Absolutely love it.
It is wild to see how far the league has come since that inaugural 2013 season. And like you said, you've seen it all, the good, the bad, the ugly. What do you think the next 13 years is going to look like for the NWSL?
Oh, wow. I mean, I don't know. It's on a spaceship right now.
I know, right?
Flying. And I really hope it keeps its essence of what's made it amazing. I think the parity is amazing. I know there's huge calls for getting rid of the salary cap. I'm massively someone who doesn't think we should do that. Just because I think Europe would die to have a salary cap the way we have it. They'd die for it because it enables parity, And can I think we can do things to keep our top talent? Absolutely. But I think we have to be mindful that what makes us amazing is how competitive our league is. And we'll always get people here. People will always want to come here. And there's always, the next young talent coming through. And I'm someone who's living that right now. I was devastated when Rose and Sonnet left. I was devastated. And I was like, how are we ever going to get past it? And then a year later, Maddie Darlene, Emery, Jordan Bug, whoever, they're all Sally, Sammy. There's so many young talent coming through. This will always be okay in this country because there's so much talent in it. And I think that's what's exciting, right? In the next 13 years is, I hope, two things. The youth keeps coming through. I think that's amazing. And we get more female coaches in head coaching roles.
Figured you were going to say that.
I'm very, very passionate about that. I think it's a crisis currently. It's a strong word. That we have to be aware of, and we have to do something about it. And if I can advocate in any way for it, I truly believe it's part of my responsibility now to do that.
Your impact on the league is undeniable. Your part in establishing the culture and success in Seattle is reflected in the incredible players that have come through the organization and those that clearly love playing for the Reign and representing the city. What do you think is the secret ingredient to the culture that you've built? What makes it so special?
I think it's always come from a place of people first, like interacting with players on a human level. Like I remember when we were in Utah where it was Game of Thrones and Handmaid's Tale and whatever it might be, right? Like I love that. I absolutely love it. And I've never wanted people to fear or feel like there's like this huge power dynamic. I understand there is a power dynamic, but ultimately we're humans first and foremost. And I think that culture at the Reign has always existed. And we stand up for things that we believe in. I always have wanted people to be able to be who they are. If you are crazy and outspoken, be crazy and outspoken. If you're quiet and you want to sit in your own time and do your own thing. Sit in your own time, do your own thing. Like, you be you. But when we get out on the field, it's sort of like a switch goes off. We know we're in business. And I think that uniqueness, I don't know if it is unique, but I feel like it's unique, has just existed throughout the reign the whole time. And speaking to the players that have been here the whole time, they said it carried on when I wasn't here. So I don't think it's a me thing. I think it's just the culture that was built from day one, and everyone wants to be part of it, which is great.
Laura, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so glad we could share your story perspective with our audience. We like to end our show by asking our guests right now, what's got you nerding out?
Any TV show, it's me. And I am big into leadership right now. Like, I'm investigating ways in which I can be better at those things. You know, I think I'm a big Mikel Arteta fan. And I think he's quite a unique character in how he leads, how he motivates, and his uniqueness of like how he gets people in. I was listening to something this morning about him and how he has like hard conversations with people, and how like where you have it can dictate how hard it is. And I was like listening to it this morning going, yeah, I really believe in that. Like, that's great. And sometimes he validates me more than he like, I learn something new. Like, he gives me validation that I've always believed in something like that. So yeah, big into leadership and trying to push myself a little bit more on that stuff.
Do you think with your Arsenal connection, you could get a sit down with him?
I mean, I would love it.
I mean, you should look into that.
I should.
Well, I hope that happens for you, but that's awesome. That's super fascinating. Thank you so much. It's really great having you on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I would pay good money to listen to Laura Harvey and Mikel Arteta talk about leadership. As you heard throughout our conversation, she gives a lot of credit to her players for creating an environment that stays hopeful and motivated even when the results aren't falling the way the team wants. But for players to have that type of influence, you need strong leadership at the top that allows for that autonomy. It takes strong relationships and the trust those relationships foster to build cultures that can endure, as it has in Seattle. By being her authentic self, Laura has found the balance, and it is reflected in the success she and her teams have found at all the different levels of our game. This week, I'm nerding out on, or will be nerding out on once I buy it, a video game that I have seriously been waiting on for 8 years, and that game is Silksong. It is the sequel to the wildly popular Metroidvania game Hollow Knight that came out in 2017. This game was promised to us years ago, and I would search gamer boards to get any snippets of information on possible release dates. If you're looking for a game to play and haven't played Hollow Knight, it's in my top 5 games of all time for the Switch. You have to check it out. If you don't hear from me for a while, you'll know why. I'm off to game. Let us know what you're nerding out about right now. Email us at teamingup@meninblazers.com and join our nerd squad. Our quirky community is growing, and we're so glad to have you along for the journey. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with more next week.